Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This is Nabeel, Qureshi, and David Wood doing the unofficial Seeking Allah Finding Jesus video series. I do have to say that there is an official one, great for group study, that I would suggest you take a look at. And also my book, Seeking Allah Finding Jesus, where I share the context of where these questions came up. Because these objections are not divorced from life. The Muslim who's objecting to you with these objections, or if you are a Muslim and you have these objections, you come with a whole host of background issues and questions and teachings that you're bringing with you to the table. And so this book is designed to help you understand, look, Muslims are people, and the objections that they bring up come from a certain background. And one of the objections I brought up with David was the objection we're going to cover now.
And this is one of the most common objections you'll hear from Muslims. In fact, I would. This isn't based on any actual studies that I'm aware of. These are just what are the most common objections Muslims bring up to me.
And anecdotally, yeah. and to me too now.
Over and over again, Bible's been corrupt. Over and over again, where did Jesus say, "I am God, worship me"? And then this third one, how can God die? Right? And you can see why this would be a persuasive objection to Muslims. Christians believe in the deity of Christ. So we believe that Jesus is God. We also believe that Jesus died on the cross. So if Jesus is God, then God died on the cross. But God isn't the sort of thing that dies. Therefore, we just have a completely incoherent belief, according to the Muslim. And if our belief is incoherent, we don't really need to why are we even investigating it? It's just incoherent and illogical. And so Muslims believe that they have a sort of knockdown argument here. And that's why it's important to respond to this kind of argument. But I've found from personal experience, if you just start trying to explain Christian theology to the Muslim just isn't going to get it, because many Muslims don't want to get it. They've been sort of hardwired not to get it. And so I found something that's helpful is to say something along the lines of, okay, I see why you're making that objection. I want to think about it for a little bit, and then I'm going to respond to your objection. In the meantime, I had a question about the Quran. So we've got a Quran here. Let's talk briefly about the Quran. Then we'll get back to your objection. Now, as far as Islam is concerned, is the Quran eternal, or does it have some sort of beginning? And it's always possible that you could run into a Muslim who has no clue what he's talking about, but what is the correct answer according to Islam?
It's eternal, yeah, absolutely.
The Quran is the eternal speech of Allah, according to Islamic theology. If a Muslim says the Quran has a beginning, you're either talking to someone who has no clue what he's talking about, or he's a heretic, and you tell him he needs to go talk to his imam to straighten him out. Because according to Orthodox Islamic theology, the Quran is the eternal speech of Allah. So the Quran is eternal. And once you've clarified that with your Muslim friend, say, okay, well, I've got a Quran here. It says 2002. Published in 2002. Now, if the Quran is eternal, how is it published in 2002? The Quran had a beginning. This Quran had a beginning. This Quran didn't always exist. The Quran had a beginning in 2002. And this Quran is paper and glue and ink. This isn't the sort of thing that lasts forever. This is the sort of thing that has a beginning and will eventually fall apart. In fact, there have been times in history when Qurans have been burned. That we've already discussed. The third of the rightly guided caliphs burned all of the Qurans so that he could put out an official version of the Quran. So he's burning the Quran. Well, wait a minute. The Quran is eternal. It's incorruptible. It's unchangeable. It's not the sort of thing that can be destroyed. It's not the sort of thing that can be burned. So how are you telling me that the Quran is eternal and unchanging and incorruptible? It has no beginning, it has no end. How are you telling me this when this Quran clearly has a beginning? It will eventually fall apart. Other Qurans had beginnings. They fell apart or were burned. Your claims make no sense. You have a completely incoherent theology. And I bring this up to the Muslim and let the Muslim eventually think through this, because lots of Muslims haven't thought through this. They haven't realized because they haven't thought through this, that the answer, according to Orthodox Islamic theology, is that the Quran has two natures. it has two natures. On one hand, it is the divine, eternal, uncreated, unchanging, incorruptible speech of Allah. As such, it can't be changed, it has no beginning, it has no end, and so on. But the Quran enters our world, our physical world, in a physical form, made of paper and glue and ink, or written on people's hearts and minds. But it takes on a physical form in our world, because that's how things exist in our world. And so, why can the Quran be burned by Uthman? Well, because the eternal Quran, according to Islamic theology, the eternal Quran entered our world and had a dual nature at that point. And because it had a dual nature, part of which was a physical nature, it could be burned. So, according to Islamic theology, it actually makes sense why someone can take the Quran and burn it, even though the Quran is uncreated and incorruptible, because the Quran didn't just stay in its eternal, divine, uncorruptible state. It entered our world in physical form, made of paper and glue and ink, and therefore can be burned. And once my Muslim friend has finally clarified his own theology, then I say, okay, now I understand that you don't have a contradiction here. You're not saying that the Quran as it existed eternally was burned. You're saying that the Quran, after entering our world and taking on a physical nature, and then it had a dual nature, was burned because it now had a physical nature. Thank you. I understand your theology now, my Muslim friend. But I have a question for you. When the Bible says, John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, goes on in John to say, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, so that the Word, which was God, entered our world in a physical form. So the eternal Word, which is God, uncreated, incorruptible, enters our world, taking on human flesh, then has a dual nature. That dual nature can die on the cross because it has taken on a physical nature. But if the dual nature is put on a cross, you wouldn't say that the eternal God has died, just as if a Quran is burned, even though this is the dual nature. You don't say that Allah's eternal speech has been destroyed or something like that. What was your objection to Christian theology, and why is it incoherent and contradictory? Because at that point, all the Muslim can say is it's not true. He can no longer say it's a contradiction, because Christians aren't saying that God, as he exists in himself, died on the cross. We're saying that God entered our world, took on the flesh, became flesh, and at that point, when he had a dual nature, could die on the cross. And so how is that a contradiction? And at this point, if they say we have a contradiction or our theology is incoherent, then they've just shown that Orthodox Islamic theology is contradictory and incoherent. They don't want to do that, so they have to change the objection. And now they just have to say that it's not true, or that our scriptures have been corrupted. But if they say our scriptures have been corrupted, then they have to deal with the other responses to questions of the Bible's preservation, in which case they're going to lose that discussion. So, problem either way.
Yeah, I think, and as I explain in my book, No God But One, there are a lot of parallels between Christ as the eternal Word, the Logos, and the Quran in Islam. A lot of people just assume that there's a parallel between the Bible and the Quran because there's two scriptures. But the place that the Quran holds in Islamic theology is much more analogous to the place that Jesus holds in Christian theology. And we've just seen some of the reason why, as David has unpacked the two natures of the Quran. The answer I give is different. I'm not saying this one's any worse. In fact, I might use this one in the future. It's good. But the answer I give is much more kind of straightforward. I'll ask a person, if they say, how can God die on this earth? God lives forever. I will say, when you die, do you stop existing? You as a human, when you die, do you stop existing? And they say, no, this body dies, but I will exist forever. And I say, well, same thing with God. When God came into this world, he took on a flesh, and he himself, in his essence, didn't die. The body died, just like our body will die, but we will continue existing after this body dies. In the same way, Jesus Christ didn't cease existing when he was killed on the cross. He continues to exist. And it's a simple, straightforward answer. I've seen that work on many occasions. And that's one of the answers I provide in here. There's lots of different approaches you can take, just like we said in a previous video. Just figure out who the person is you're talking to, what kinds of things they're thinking about, and address the appropriate response to them. Pray about it, ask the Holy Spirit to lead and guide as you're talking to Muslims. And if you are a Muslim and you're watching this and you're saying, oh wow, well, I never heard this before, I hope you continue asking questions and you continue listening to the answers. You can ask a question just for the sake of objecting. If that's you, none of these videos are going to help you. No conversation is ever going to help you. But if you actually are interested in the truth, and if you actually care about who God is, then when you ask these questions, I hope you'll continue to listen to the answers that we're providing, wrestle with them. You might still disagree with them at the end of the day, but I'm thankful that you're listening and you're watching, and I hope this has been helpful to you. And so after this video, we're going to come with another common objection to Christianity by Muslims. I hope this has been helping you. Thanks so much.